As protests for racial equity and justice continue, the COVID-19 pandemic is still very much present and on the rise. While the rest of the state has moved into a low-risk category, Salt Lake City is still in an orange moderate risk phase. Preventing the spread of this pandemic is key, and by taking the proper safety and precautionary measures, you not only protect yourself and your family, but those that are considered high risk. If you're still in need of a mask, check out the Mask Every Utahn program at coronavirus.utah.gov/mask. Households can request up to 6 free masks. Help us stay safe, Salt Lake City. On this week's episode of Capital City News, we hear from Ben Kolander, the acting director of the city's Economic Development Department, about how masks and face coverings can help businesses stay open and keep our economy up and running. And our History Minute is about Allen Park. Let's get started with our legislative update and look back.
At its June 16th meeting, the City Council adopted a city budget for the 2020 and 2021 fiscal year, including modest changes to the police budget as a first step toward equity in policing. They plan to have a thorough financial review of the police budget starting from zero, and plan to set aside $1.7 million for projects in communities of color. To learn more, visit slc.gov/council.
The city budget was passed earlier this month, and the City Council made some preliminary moves to address racial equity in policing as far as their budget is concerned. City Council Chair Chris Wharton shared details about the changes and why this is just the first of many steps the city is taking to address the police department's budget, policy changes, and more.
But I want to emphasize that this is just the beginning of the process. There are a lot of laws in place, both state and city, that a state law that requires us to pass a budget, and it has to be a complete budget for the whole year, and it has to be done by the end of June. Meanwhile, there are a lot of other ordinances and statutes that say what our police department has to do. So the council can't just do an across-the-board cut that would prevent the police department from doing the things that they're already required to do. What we need to do is go back and look at those ordinances and statutes and reevaluate what it is that we're asking officers to do, and then we can start making the cuts in a more precise and surgical way. So this is just the beginning of that process. There wasn't an ability to do all of that before the end of June. And I think that I hope people will continue to stay engaged with us because our goal is to start working on a zero-based budget for the police department and go up from there. So there will be many more changes to come.
To watch the full interview, please visit youtube.com/slctvmedia. Salt Lake City Mayor Aaron Mendenhall, the City Council, and members of the community announced the Commission on Racial Equity in Policing, a new advising body convened to make recommendations to the Mayor and City Council on the city's policy, budget, and culture of policing.
We must confront systemic racism and take meaningful, sustainable action. Together, we take a significant step forward in this work today as we announce the formation of the Core Council for our Commission on Racial Equity in Policing. This commission is charged with examining our police department's policies, budget, and culture. The work will be inclusive of the spectrum of community voices, and the process and results will be transparent. While we've asked these community leaders to help us launch this effort, it is not a commission that will be driven by elected officials or the city establishment. We are unleashing this commission to be a true voice of the community and expect them to inform and advise us, even when what they're telling us may be hard to hear and maybe even harder to change. I truly believe that this commission can result in real and positive change to the way that our police department functions as an institution and a figure in our community, and also be an example to cities and police departments across the nation.
My Voice, My Census, My Future. A community town hall was held in Spanish to open a dialogue on the importance of the 2020 census, why it matters, and how to participate. State and local Latino leaders talked about the need for representation and addressed common fears regarding immigration, citizenship, and confidentiality. The census deadline has been extended to October 31st of this year. To learn more and get counted, visit slc.gov/census, or for Spanish, visit slc.gov/censo. As businesses are starting to open back up in Salt Lake City, there are some steps that the public can take to help businesses stay safe and stay open. Ben Kolander, acting director of the city's Economic Development Department, shares details and talks about steps that the city is taking to support businesses during COVID-19.
As the acting director of economic development, it's kind of hard to develop the economy in a time where we're dealing with a pandemic. Can you kind of talk to me about what Salt Lake City's doing to help businesses during this time?
Yeah, it's a whole new world we've been in since March. Businesses are really curious about three things. First is, what sort of resources are out there? We're hearing so much about grant opportunities from the local, state, and national levels. Helping businesses navigate that is really important. The second pillar really is regulations I have to follow. You know, if we're in orange phase or yellow phase, what does that mean? How do I adjust my business operations? What's required? What's not? And then the third phase really is, what are best practices I should be following? A lot of businesses are collaborating and sharing what they're doing with other businesses, and it's helping them to innovate out of the pandemic in terms of getting their business back to normal as quickly as possible. So our key role in the city has really been in those three buckets and getting that information out to businesses and helping them collaborate.
What can residents of Salt Lake City and visitors of Salt Lake City do in order to help maintain the economic health of Salt Lake City?
Really wear a mask. You wear a mask, you protect our economy. If we have the spread increasing at a rapid rate here locally, that carries a risk of us falling back into a more at-risk health phase, which could obviously hurt our economy. So really the message should be, protect our economy, wear a mask.
For those who might not understand quite what the risk phases mean, where is Salt Lake City now, and what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so we are currently in an orange phase. You have other parts of the state that are in different phases, but in Salt Lake City, we're in orange currently. And what that means is, face covering should be worn anytime you're out in public settings where other physical distancing measures just aren't possible. So if you can't be more than 6 feet away from somebody else on a regular basis, then you should be wearing a mask. You should be constantly laundering that mask, keeping it cleaner, having a new one on a regular basis as well. And even when you're wearing a mask, you should be more than 6 feet away from people just to be safe. Even cloth covering should be, cloth covering should not be placed on children under 2. But other than that, you should be having a face covering out in public to help protect that spread. Orange as well means so there are smaller crowds than in the yellow phases. Schools are closed when they're open in yellow, for example. So those are the major circumstances you'll see when we're in orange phase.
It seems like so much of the economy is the confidence of people to be able to go out and go to businesses.
Yeah, I would say as a patron of a business, it definitely, if you go into a business, you're feeling more uncomfortable, even sometimes wearing your mask when you know it's the right thing, if you see other people who aren't. And so it's a really uncomfortable position. So the message to the general population should be wear a mask. That not only helps you feel more comfortable, but the business doesn't have to say, hey, I'm uncomfortable to tell you this, but really you should wear a mask in my establishment. That puts them in a really tricky spot when they have such a limited amount of people coming into their business right now because of the pandemic and a lot of circumstances. So so wearing a mask definitely helps. I would say as well, one great thing about Salt Lake City and about Utah is that our businesses are highly collaborative. and they share best practices. So, they're innovating new ways to be safe all the time and learning quickly, whether it's curbside or other things that businesses are doing locally to get a product to the consumer in a safe way. It's happening pretty quickly here locally. And so that's a great thing to see on the business side.
If I'm a resident and I want to start patronizing businesses and don't have a mask, where can I get one?
Most local drugstores have masks. Grocery stores will still have some in stock oftentimes. The state also had a program, a mask for every Utahn, that if you Google, you can find, and you fill out a form and they send a mask to you. Those take a couple of weeks to get in, we're hearing, but there are still masks available. And Now Playing Utah even has a great setup that they partnered with local artists to create masks, and you can order on their website.
What parting wisdom would you give residents and visitors of Salt Lake City?
In order for our economy to pull through this and to thrive, this is first and foremost a public health issue. And wearing masks and doing those things that help prevent the spread of COVID-19, it's really going to help get us back to normal in a faster way and really protect our economy.
Next up is our History Minute.
In 1931, Dr. George Allen acquired an old farm that occupied about 8 acres of property in the Sugar House neighborhood. Workers built a log cabin house for his family, and winding paths stretched out from the house along nearby Immigration Creek. Dr. Allen used the space to house his collection of birds and animals whose cages could be seen throughout. Over the years, Allen became integral to the creation of Tracy Aviary and the Hogle Zoo and was counted as an influential member of the community. Over the years, patients who couldn't afford Allen's services would repay him with work on his property. Others would repay him with help relocating small houses from the surrounding area. The first was a log cabin from the 1850s. Then later, in the 1940s, he added small employee houses from a mining company nearby. Soon he had an entire community of houses like this and began renting out homes in Allen Park. Over the years, local legends grew, and eventually, stories of hobbits and little people spread. This unique community, home to an eclectic mix of hippies and college professors and other professionals, would be redubbed Hobbitville. Teenagers from the area would spend Saturday nights looking for any sign of fantastical creatures, much to the chagrin of the residents. Today, the property is vacant. After the last of the Allen children that had been living in Allen Park passed away, the buildings were vacated in early 2019 and sold, leaving the fate of the charming landmark in question. In 2020, Salt Lake City purchased the property with aims of preserving this important place as a park.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Capital City News. Tune in next time to get the latest on COVID-19 and stay up to date on Salt Lake City news. For SLC TV, I'm Poonam Kumar.